Here's the nightmare nobody wants to face. In less than 1 second, an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, could erase the modern world, not your Wi-Fi, not just your Netflix, but everything. Planes fall from the sky, cars stall on the freeway, water pumps, grocery freezers, hospitals, and banks, fried instantly. The Congressional EMP Commission warned that if America's power grid collapsed for just 1 year, 9 out of 10 people could be dead from starvation, disease, and civil breakdown. This isn't theory. Solar storms like the Carrington event of 1859 already proved it can happen, and nuclear adversaries know it's our Achilles heel. The terrifying part? You'd have no warning. 1 second you're scrolling, the next second your entire life support system is gone. But survival doesn't have to cost a fortune. Right now, there are dirt cheap items, things you can buy for pocket change that will keep you alive when the lights never come back on. Items that laugh at grid failure, outlast technology, and turn into barter gold when desperation sets in. Let's break down the 10 cheap items you need to stock before the next EMP hits. 10. Candles, the silent lifeline of light. When the EMP wipes out the grid and your fancy smart bulbs are nothing more than decorative glass, the humble candle becomes your torchbearer. Don't underestimate it. Candles are one of the cheapest, most reliable sources of light mankind has ever created. A single unscented emergency candle can burn for up to 120 hours. That's 5 days of steady light, all from a $2 stick of wax. Studies of disaster psychology show that constant darkness is one of the fastest triggers of panic and depression, reducing cognitive performance by as much as 40% within 3 days. Candles cut through that mental fog. They don't need batteries, they don't care about voltage spikes, and they'll still work a century after you buy them, provided they're stored dry. In fact, archaeological digs have uncovered 2,000-year-old wax remnants that still lit after trimming. Think about that, and in barter terms, priceless. During Wellwise London blackouts, candles were worth more than cigarettes in some neighborhoods. A 12-pack of emergency candles today costs less than your drive-through meal, yet in a dead grid future, they'll be glowing gold. You can cook small meals, sterilize tools with their flame, and keep morale alive when night feels endless. 9. Salt, the white gold of survival. Salt isn't just a seasoning. After an EMP, it becomes civilization itself. Here's the brutal truth. Every human requires about 500 milligrams of sodium daily to maintain cellular function, nerve transmission, and muscle contractions. Without it, dehydration, cramps, and fatal electrolyte imbalances set in fast. Now picture a world where your fridge is dead, your freezer is a dripping mess, and food preservation collapses overnight. Salt steps in as the original refrigerator. It preserves meat, fish, and vegetables through curing and fermentation, techniques used for thousands of years before electricity. According to USDA data, salted meat can last up to 18 months when stored properly. That's the difference between starvation and stability. Salt is also barter gold. In medieval Europe, it was literally used as currency, with salary deriving from the word salt. And in Venezuela's collapse, salt prices tripled because people needed it not for flavor, but for survival. The beauty? It's dirt cheap today. A 25-pound bag costs under $10 at livestock supply stores. Stockpile it in airtight containers, and you've not only secured your survival seasoning, you've armed yourself with a commodity that neighbors will trade food, fuel, or even protection for when their pantries run bland and bare. 8. Sewing kits, the forgotten arsenal. When the EMP strikes, fashion is the least of your worries, but clothing durability suddenly becomes a survival factor. Ripped pants mean exposure. Torn jackets mean hypothermia, and while big box stores may stockpile brand new clothes today, after an EMP, those shelves will empty in hours. Enter the dirt cheap, often overlooked sewing kit. A pack of needles, some heavy-duty thread, and a pair of scissors can extend the lifespan of your clothing and gear by years. During the Great Depression, families mended garments dozens of times, sometimes passing the same coat through 3 generations. Military data from Wellwise shows that troops with access to field sewing kits kept uniforms serviceable 70% longer, reducing supply demand drastically. But this isn't just about clothes. A sewing kit can patch tents, repair backpacks, stitch tarps, or even close wounds in extreme cases. Yes, a sterile needle and thread can literally save a life. Today, you can grab one for under $5 at a dollar store. In a world where you can't order new boots or buy a jacket online, the person who can keep gear stitched together holds the line against nature. Small, silent, and EMP-proof. This is survival tech at its simplest and smartest. 7. Duct tape. Civilization on a roll. Let's cut the nonsense. Duct tape is the closest thing we have to real-world magic. One roll can patch a hole in a leaking bucket, seal food containers, reinforce shoes, secure broken windows, or even serve as makeshift medical tape. In survival testing by popular mechanics, duct tape was successfully used to repair a broken kayak paddle, patch a leaking tent, and even immobilize a fractured wrist. The U.S. military used over 100 million yards of it in DOA aircraft repairs. Why? Because it works everywhere, on everything, no power required. After an EMP, every cracked plastic container, every torn tarp, every busted hose becomes a liability. With duct tape, you don't throw it away, you fix it. And here's a number that matters. FEMA estimates that during prolonged blackouts, home damage from weather events like rain leaks increases fivefold, mostly due to the inability to perform quick repairs. Duct tape is your emergency weatherproofing. The best part, it costs under $10 a roll, and one roll stretches over 60 yards. That's 180 feet of survival insurance for the price of a sandwich. Stockpile half a dozen rolls, and you've just bought yourself the ability to improvise solutions when the world stops manufacturing replacements. 6. Baking soda, the EMP-era Swiss Army powder. This isn't just for cookies. Baking soda is one of the cheapest, most versatile survival items you can stockpile, and it's practically indestructible. For hygiene, it's a natural toothpaste, deodorant, and soap extender. For medical use, it neutralizes stomach acid, soothes insect bites, and can even act as a mild antiseptic. For food, it extends shelf life by absorbing odors and moisture, keeping grains and flour usable longer. But here's where it gets tactical. After an EMP, refrigeration fails, and spoiled food becomes a killer. Baking soda can be sprinkled on perishable storage areas to slow bacterial growth. In fact, USDA research has confirmed that sodium bicarbonate inhibits microbial development, meaning it's not just a cleaner, it's a food safety multiplier. Historically, households during the 1800s used it for everything from scrubbing kettles to tenderizing tough game meat. And in terms of barter value, its sheer versatility makes it irreplaceable. A single pound sells for under $2 today, yet in Venezuela's collapse, everyday multi-purpose items like baking soda and vinegar skyrocketed because people couldn't afford single-use products anymore. Stock 20 pounds in sealed containers, and you've armed yourself with a pharmacy, a cleaning arsenal, and a food preserver, all in one EMP-proof package. Without clean running water, disease spreads faster than fire in a dry forest. Here's where the $1 bar of soap becomes more valuable than antibiotics. According to the World Health Organization, simple hand washing with soap reduces diarrheal disease by up to 47% and respiratory infections by 23%. That's not hygiene trivia, that's survival math. In post-disaster Haiti, cholera outbreaks killed over 9,000 people, largely because clean water and soap were scarce. Soap doesn't need electricity, refrigeration, or complicated storage. It lasts indefinitely when kept dry. And here's the kicker. Soap is also a barter weapon. In Bosnia's siege of Sarajevo, a single bar could trade for a day's worth of bread because it meant protection against infection when hospitals were overwhelmed. Stockpiling 50 bars today costs less than a dinner out, but in a dead grid world, that pile is equivalent to a medical insurance policy. Whether it's bathing, cleaning wounds, or scrubbing cookware, bar soap slams the door on bacteria. In a post-EMP world, you don't want to be the guy with a full pantry but too sick to eat because you couldn't wash your hands. Soap is cheap today, priceless tomorrow. 4. Vinegar, the liquid that does everything. Vinegar isn't just for pickles. After an EMP, it becomes one of the most versatile survival liquids you can store. White vinegar and apple cider vinegar are natural disinfectants, food preservatives, and cleaning agents. A 5% acetic acid solution, standard household vinegar, kills 80% of bacteria and viruses on contact, making it a budget-friendly antiseptic when medical supplies are scarce. During the American Civil War, vinegar was used to clean wounds and prevent gangrene before antibiotics existed. For food, it's a preservation powerhouse. Pickling extends vegetables' shelf life by months without refrigeration. Historically, sailors carried barrels of vinegar on long voyages to prevent scurvy and keep water drinkable. And here's where it gets wild. Vinegar neutralizes odors, cuts through grease, and even helps in pest control. A gallon jug costs under $3 today, but in Venezuela's collapse, vinegar was hoarded because it replaced expensive single-use cleaners and medicines. Stock 10 gallons and you've secured yourself a disinfectant, a food preserver, a wound cleaner, and a barter item people will beg for. Vinegar's shelf life is practically indefinite if stored sealed. In a world where modern cleaning aisles vanish in days, this humble liquid will keep your home sanitary and your food edible. 3. Coffee, survival fuel for the mind. After an EMP, when sleep is broken by fear, nights are long and days are filled with grinding labor, coffee won't just be a luxury, it'll be a survival stimulant. Caffeine increases alertness, reaction time, and endurance, according to dozens of military studies. The U.S. Army has documented that caffeine boosts vigilance by up to 66% in soldiers during sleep-deprived operations. That's not about comfort, that's about staying alive on watch duty when looters prowl. Coffee also suppresses appetite slightly, buying you extra hours when food is scarce. But here's where it turns into black market gold. In every economic collapse, stimulants like coffee and tea become prized commodities. During Why, coffee rationing in the U.S. caused riots in some cities. In modern Venezuela, a single pound of coffee could trade for a week's groceries because it fueled people through their exhaustion. The beauty: coffee beans or grounds are cheap today, $10 for a large can, and vacuum-sealed they last years. Instant coffee packets stretch even longer. Stockpiling it isn't about having a cozy cup by the fire, it's about having a chemical edge in a brutal world where sleep will be scarce and mental sharpness will mean the difference between spotting danger and stumbling into it. 2. Trash bags. Black gold of preparedness. It sounds ridiculous, but trash bags might be one of the smartest items you can hoard before an EMP. These aren't just for garbage, they're multi-tools of survival. Heavy-duty contractor bags can be used as ponchos, improvised tents, waterproof gear covers, or even to collect rainwater. FEMA itself lists plastic sheeting and trash bags among top emergency supplies because of their sheer versatility. In Haiti after the 2010 earthquake, survivors used trash bags to line pit toilets, reducing cholera spread. In Bosnia, they became makeshift body bags when formal supplies ran out, preventing disease from spreading in urban areas. A roll of 55-gallon bags costs under $20 today and gives you 50 instant waterproof shields. And here's where it gets tactical. One bag can hold up to 30 gallons of rainwater if suspended properly, enough to keep a family hydrated for days. Try finding another Duro .40 product that doubles as clothing, shelter, sanitation, and water storage. Stockpile hundreds, because once the grid dies, waste management disappears, and human waste becomes a killer faster than starvation. Trash bags don't just keep things tidy, they keep you alive when the world turns into a cesspool. 1. Rice, the king of calorie insurance. At the top of the list sits rice, the cheapest, longest-lasting, and most efficient calorie bank you can stockpile. A single 20-pound bag costs under $15 and contains over 32,000 calories. That's enough to feed one adult for 3 weeks at subsistence levels. Stored properly in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, rice lasts 25 to 30 years. That's not food, that's time. And in a post-EMP world, time is survival. During Japan's post-WW2 recovery, rice was so vital that rationing it determined who lived comfortably and who starved. In modern prepping circles, it's considered the ultimate staple crop in a bag because it pairs with beans to create a complete protein source. Without refrigeration, fresh meat and dairy vanish in days, but rice holds the line for decades. The calorie-to-dollar ratio is unmatched, about 2,000 calories per $1 if bought in bulk. And in terms of barter, rice becomes currency, especially when desperate neighbors' pantries run dry. Imagine having 200 pounds stored, that's 320,000 calories, enough to outlast almost any crisis wave. The U.S. EMP Commission warned that 90% of Americans could perish in a year-long grid collapse, mostly from starvation. Rice is your antidote to that statistic. Dirt cheap today, priceless tomorrow.